Hello, Doctor Who fans across the world, wherever you are, welcome to another Who Corner to Corner podcast. My name is Paul, I'm here with my jolly good friend Jeff, and we are joined by a writer of one of the very best, that is unironic, one of the very best Doctor Who episodes featuring the 10th Doctor and Donna. That episode is Planet of the Ood, and the writer we are talking to is Mr. Keith Temple.
Hello
Keith,
Hi.
and welcome
Good
to
morning.
the show.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
I'm very well on this glorious June day. Yes, thank you very much.
It's beautiful out there, isn't it?
It is.
Really, really nice.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's a pleasure to get out of bed when the sun shines.
Yeah, it's always a bonus.
Otherwise, I just sit like Noel Coward in my dressing gown and cravat and never venturing out.
That's the actor's life, isn't it, I suppose? Or the writer's life, Just composing, pulling thoughts out of the air.
Oh, if only.
It's brilliant. So, Keith, obviously it's not just Doctor Who that you've written. You've got quite an impressive CV, quite a lot of stuff behind you, a lot of soaps. We've got Doc Martin and various other things. So just take us right back to the beginning, if you will. Let's go wibbly wobbly. What made you become a writer? How did you make that decision?
Well,
what happened?
From
Tell us.
Kind of a very early age, I knew that I wanted to be involved in the arts in some kind of way. I thought at first with acting, and I actually went to university and studied drama, and very quickly realised that I wasn't meant to be an actor. But I was always writing, and I love writing.
Yeah.
But I considered it from my childhood days. In fact, I was just thinking about it yesterday. I used to kind of write short stories from the kids in my street and try and turn them into book form and sell them with very little success. But
Oh, you tried to sell them. You had that commercial gene from the start.
Absolutely. And I used to design my own book covers. But you know, as a kid growing up in Newcastle, it was kind of whenever I said I wanted to be a writer, people would sort of go, "Come on, really?" So it was one of those.
It's not a proper job.
It's just that.
Yeah.
And I thought
did you get
very
that?
sort of intellectual, academic types, and I certainly wasn't that. But the older I got, and the more I was writing, and I'd show my work to people and say, "Actually, that's not bad." And so then I thought, maybe I could become a writer. So that's what I focused on. And it was one of those things where I'd worked in Australia for a while, and I saw an advert in The Guardian when I got back for a job as a researcher for a documentary. And, you know, we used to joke amongst my friends when we were sort of leaving university that nobody got jobs that were advertised in The Guardian because they weren't real. But actually, this was a real advert, and I got the job. And so I kind of ended up as a researcher. That was my sort of, foothold in how I got into television. And that was in Leeds. And I worked for the documentary company for about 2 years. And I was writing, entering sort of Radio Times drama competitions. And not particularly getting on, but I got commended for one of my scripts, and then Victoria Wood was someone that I thought was really good in terms of comedy and writing, and so I sent a load of my stuff to her and said, "Look," and it was all handwritten as well because it was the days before everyone had a laptop or computer. And I said it was really rude. She was under the Grand Theatre in Leeds, and I just dropped in a big envelope in the stage door and just said, "Please read this. I'm a big fan, and I'd love to be a writer. What do you think? I've got any talent? And P.S. If you want to write back, you'll have to buy a stamp yourself because the post office is shut." I mean, it really was one of those cheeky letters. But she actually did reply, and she said that I can see you got talent. I can't help you. But carry on, do what you're doing. So that was a real kind of boost.
Fantastic.
Someone who didn't really kind of know if you could do it or not. And then, because I was in Leeds, a friend of mine had said, "Well, look, Yorkshire Television, ITV, Yorkshire now, but it was Yorkshire Television in those days. They make Emmerdale. It's on the doorstep. Why don't you write them a letter?"
Yeah.
And so I did, and I wrote, again, one of those lying letters where I said, "I love the show, I've watched it ever since I was a child," which was a complete lie, because it was just, as far as I was concerned, it was for old people. But they wrote back and says, as a matter of fact, there is a job going in the script department for a script assistant, stroke researcher. Would you be interested? So I went along for interview, and it was one of those things, when you really aren't bothered about a job. So you just yourself. You don't care what you say. You just relax.
You
just one of those interviews.
Wing it.
Yeah. So I did, and I got the job. And so that was my sort of foothold in drama, and it went on from there. I loved working on that show because I ended up a script editor. And it was one of those things that, every two weeks we'd be in studio recording. At the end of the final day, the director would run down to me and say, "Oh my God, this episode's 5 minutes under, and we need another scene written. We need that scene now, and there are only 2 actors, and there's only 1 set lit, so you'll have to do it there." So it was a really great training ground. So I kind of got started in soaps without thinking that, soaps is where I want to be, soapland. But I liked it, and I used to get really annoyed with people who say, "Oh, well, it's just soap. It's like anyone can do it." And actually, it's really difficult. It's a particular type of difficult genre to write for, and I loved it. So after a while, though, I got fed up with writing for soap opera and wanted to do other things. I mean, I became a writer because I had something I wanted to say about the world we live in. Various things going on, so I kind of got a bit jaded with soap opera because it didn't really reflect real life. I mean, they say it does.
How long were you at Emmerdale with?
Oh, I was on Emmerdale for about 3 or 4 years, and I actually got the boot in the end because they did a big plane crash, and they were trying to sort of reinvent it, and I kind of said what I thought about it, and I was kind of elbowed out. So I did that for about 3 years. It's the story of my career, really. I should really learn to shut my mouth,
didn't you?
Sorry?
You did EastEnders for quite a while as well, didn't you?
But fully after Emmerdale, I swore to myself I'd never do anything more than for about 2 years, and I ended up doing EastEnders for about 5 or 6. And again, that was a similar thing. I was asked if I'd like to write for it, and I said yes, without having really watched it much. But I quite enjoyed it for the first 2 years, definitely. Then afterwards, there was a kind of sense of just repeating myself. But I don't watch soaps these days. I've got a life. I'm too busy, but I don't watch them.
They're hard to keep up with, aren't they? When
they are.
They're on so many times a week and stuff. And it's interesting what you're saying there about how difficult they are to write for. We talked to Phil Ford the other day. And he did his start. It was on Corrie, wasn't it, Paul? Yeah. And you're one of multiple writers, obviously, and there's all these ongoing plot threads, and you've got to handle a part and pass it to the next person, and get stuff done. He said that he'd have a script and he'd have to get it written in 2 weeks, but of course back then, like you mentioned, you didn't have email, so you'd have to get it finished a couple of days in advance of your deadline, so you could print it, post it, and get it delivered and everything. And it was quite difficult thing to be part of. I mean, rewarding, but I understand what you're saying there. And also I think we talked about this, didn't we, Paul? Today everything is just click of a button and it's instant, it's easy, but we were talking about even back then in the 90s and the 80s and stuff, and typewriters and printing it, and it was totally different, wasn't it?
It's really not that long ago, but it does seem like
no, it's not.
I used to
like you'd say to kids now,
put a stamp on it. What?
Yeah, put it in the post. They wouldn't know what and a floppy disk.
My God.
Floppy disk.
I used to work on Casualty in the 90s. First of all, a script editor before I started writing for it. And in those days, which was, it was the 90s, it wasn't like 1845 or something.
Exactly.
And you'd have to...
I'm still in denial that it was 25 plus years ago, to be honest.
But I'd work on a script from that I'd write and sent in, and then I'd make my notes on it and get it okayed by the producer. And then I'd be in the television centre in Wood Lane, and then I'd have to walk up to Shepherd's Bush with the script and take it to the typing pool for the typist to type up the script. And then they'd ring me like a day or two later, or actually they'd ring me about half an hour later, say, "We can't understand your writing, we can't read it, your handwriting's terrible. What does this mean?" But then a couple of days later, they'd sort of say, "Okay, the script's ready," and I'd walk up to Shepherd's Bush Green to the offices to pick up the script and then go back and we get a photocopy. And it was just a very strange kind of world, but fun.
Good for your step count as well. Imagine that.
What we're losing
out on these days.
I was
in those days. So how did you move from the soap world into more dramatic shows?
I sort of, after about six or 7 years working in soaps, and it was it was really lucrative because the money was good and you could have a nice life. But I was working with writers who've been on these shows for like forever, and they had nice living, nice houses and everything, nice cars, but they were totally dependent on the whims of whoever was in control, the executive producer.
Yeah.
And if the kind of new executive came in who didn't like the look of them, they were out, and they were sort of really terrified that that would happen. And I thought, I don't want to be like that. And as I said, I wanted to write about the world I lived in and comment on it, and that wasn't really happening. So I kind of stopped it. I just stopped and thought, I'm going to work on my own stuff and see how that goes. And oh my God, going from earning a lot of money to nothing is pretty scary. But I did that for about 2 years, and I wrote a pilot for a series that I called Angel Cake, which was about a woman who in Newcastle, because everything I write in seems to end up being set in Newcastle, even if I don't kind of wake up and start writing it. Somehow along the way it ends up a Geordie-fied. And this was about a woman who bakes a cake that comes out of the oven looking like the Virgin Mary, and various miracles happen to the people who touch it or try to eat it. And that went through several kind of different types of development. First of all, it was taken on by ITV, who they wanted it as not as a series, but they said, "Can you work it up as a TV film?" So I did that,
feature.
And we were all set to go with Imelda Staunton, and a really good cast. Yeah. And then the ITV executive head honcho just decided that Imelda Staunton wasn't ITV, whatever that means. And they got sort of binned off, and then the BBC took it on board, and they wanted it as potentially a series. But then they said, "Oh, at the end of this, the one-off film, can you just get rid of the cake?" Well, the cake is the whole point of this piece. Because
it's kind of central, guys.
It was a sort of comedy drama, but it had a serious point, because it was about Roman Catholicism and about miracles. Because I remember I had a conversation with a priest once who said that, miracles don't happen these days. And I thought, wow, that's a big thing for a priest to say.
That's a bit nihilistic, isn't it?
I was going to ask you where the idea came from.
Yeah. That was partly what happened, what set it off. But also there was a sort of spate of these things where there was Jesus' face and a slice of toast. And people would kind of extend en masse to look at the toast in the cafe kind of thing. And you think, oh my God, that really does look like Jesus. So that's where it sort of came from. Yeah. The BBC took it on board. They wanted a sort of one-off film with a possibility of it being a series. And it was really exciting. And that's how it was. My agent used to sort of say to me every year, "Well, what would you like to work on?" And when Doctor Who came back, because I'd been a fan as a kid, I said, "Oh, I'd love to work on Doctor Who." And they said, "Oh, no.
Get me that gig."
Yeah, we don't think that'll happen. But then Angel Cake happened, and it was quite well received. So my agent sent it to Russell and Julie, and I guess they liked it. And so the phone call came saying, "Would you like to write an episode?"
Fantastic. Brilliant.
And they say miracles don't happen.
And exactly. If I saw that priest again,
they're wrong. Yeah.
You see the face of Russell T Davis in a slice of toast one morning, and then the phone call comes in.
Now there's a sequel idea for Russell Cake.
Yeah, I could go for that.
Yeah, we'll let you have that one. So, but before we talk a bit more about your work on Doctor Who, tell us about how you discovered the show and how you fell in love with it.
Well, assuming you did. Of course.
I did. Yes, absolutely. From the period between 1970 and around 1979, I didn't miss an episode. So I am the same age as Doctor Who, not the character of the show.
I was going to say you look great if you are that age. 2000. Well, I don't know what the Doctor is anymore. Does the Doctor know anymore? I can't tell you. Yeah.
So it was around 1970 that when John Pertwee became the Doctor that I started to watch it avidly. Apparently, according to my parents, I'd watched it with that funny little fella who I assume they meant Patrick Doubt. But I have no recollection.
That's what they called him, was it? That funny little fella?
Yeah, they did, yes.
When Doctor Who was that funny little fella, you used to watch it.
Well, I used to watch him.
Couldn't take you away from the TV, like. Sorry, I apologise.
That's very good. That's not a bad accent at all.
Oh, thank you, Keith.
In 1970, my kind of awareness of television and Doctor Who came into the fore, and I started watching from Spearhead from Space, and I was terrified. I was 7, really terrified, and it's funny because I've dedicated the book to my dad, because he was always coming into bed in the early hours to tend to this sort of hysterical child. And he said, the monsters aren't real. They're just men in suits. Yeah. And I was, what? No, of course you don't understand. No. They're monsters. So I just totally believed it and was terrified by it in a good way, because I kind of didn't want to watch. I did want to watch.
Yeah, that little bit of fear is good, isn't it? You know, kids should be scared of it.
Attraction almost, isn't it? It's why we watch horror films, isn't it? I think you want to be scared. You want to feel that fear.
And I do remember doing that and like peering between my fingers. So the autumn, and for about 2 or 3 years, my mother worked at C&A's, which was a department store.
I remember them.
I would never go in. No, I don't. Keeping a close eye on the mannequins.
Do you know, I used to do quite a bit of work at Ealing College, and so I'd
around the corner from that.
So I'd walk in, but it was some years after all that finished that I realised that the Autons came out in Ealing High Street, and I thought I wish I'd known at the time, because I'd have avoided that road and past those stores.
And then just when everyone's getting over the trauma from their childhood, Russell brings it back in rows, doesn't he? And has them actually coming out of windows, literally killing people.
It was a great idea. Perfect creature to bring back. I got into it big time then, and that lasted, until I John Pertwee was the Doctor as far as I was concerned, and at the end of Planet of the Spiders, which I actually the last 2 episodes I didn't see because my parents took me to Spain. Right. I mean, how evil!
That's real.
That's
and no repeats in them days either.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I had to wait till the following Christmas to see the omnibus.
To see it again.
So I was bereft when John Pertwee left, and then after a week of watching Robot, it was like, this is the man. This is Tom Baker.
It's all right. John who?
Exactly. I watched it, still avidly, but then kind of teenage years came upon me, and I had other things on my mind, and.
Can I ask? Phil said the same thing the other day, and he discovered girls and stuff, and you said the same thing as well, Paul, haven't you? It seems to be a pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was when I was younger, lots of my friends were into Doctor Who, but by the time I was about 13, 14, it was just me on my own, and I was kind of a Doctor Who fan, really. I almost bought the Target books and put them in a brown paper bag. It was that bad. It's not really a Doctor Who book. So then, I kind of lost interest a bit from around the time of some of the episodes I considered of the Heat of Time series.
Sort of mid-80s.
I didn't really get kind of warm to, but actually in retrospect, I love them. Then just by the times of the Horns of Nyman, I was done with Doctor Who, and I thought Tom had just gone a bit out of control.
Oh man, I love the Horns of Nyman.
Well, quite a few people do, but I was seeing it through the eyes of a teenager rather than
of course. This is too. This isn't. This is ridiculous. Funny. It's panto. This is not what Doctor Who. Doctor Who should be dark and horrific and scary. Blah, blah, blah.
But then again, in retrospect, looking at it at the DVD, I've enjoyed it. But yes, my life took a different course, and then that was it really. And of course, I kind of dipped in and dipped out of it throughout the years. But it's 1970 to 79. I was kind of one of the biggest fans.
Yeah. So then I suppose getting a chance to write for it when the call comes through from Russell's office, then it must have been pretty special.
It was, because when I started writing, Doctor Who wasn't around; it had gone forever, as far as I was concerned. So when it did come back, I was, maybe it's a possibility. And I've always described myself as an optimistic pessimist, because I just thought, it's never going to happen, but it could, so that'd be great.
It could.
It did. But I met Russell. Russell years earlier at a IT. Well, we passed in the corridors at various times. And then we were at an ITV writers' party in the 90s, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it was just around the time that the Ice Warriors video had come out with this sort of came with a book.
Oh yes, yeah. The reconstructed
that's right.
episodes and with the telesnaps or whatever.
Yes, and I'd gone to the party and talked about it. And Russell said, "Oh my God, are you a Doctor Who fan?" I said, "Yes." Oh, great. And he said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if they brought it back?" And I said, "Yeah, it would."
Yeah.
Little thinking that in a few years' time after that conversation, certainly would be bringing it back. So yeah, it was a great thrill when they said, "Would you like to write for it?" It was kind of, oh, I don't believe this.
Is there a kind of fear that sets in? It's like, oh my gosh, now I've got to write something, at this kind of level, and a bit of responsibility.
Yeah, I always feel the fear, no matter what I do, whatever the project is, and I avoid writing that first page, sitting down to write the first page for as long as I can, because I just think, oh, I can't do it, and why did I say I would do it, and it's just I just don't, I can't. And then very quickly, once you started it, I think, oh, this is what I love to do. What's the problem? But sitting down and writing the first scene of that script was kind of really daunting, because you're kind of aware of the entire history of the show on your that's arrogant to say the entire history of the show on your shoulders, but there is an element of that.
It's got to be.
You don't want to do a bad job.
You can't escape it. Was it slightly different? Well, I guess, even something like Emmerdale, which had quite a history before you were working on it as well, wasn't it? Because that been going for quite a while. Yeah. So is it really different between something like that and something like Doctor Who, or is it the same kind of frisson?
I think it's slightly different, and that there is an element of a sense of the history of the show in terms of Emmerdale. But I think I'm more aware of the fan involvement of something like Doctor Who, rather than the sort of, at that time, it may have changed now, it's a heck of a long time since I worked in Emmerdale, but in those days they had a fan club, and they were kind of a really kind of dedicated bunch of people, but it wasn't it wasn't kind of worldwide like Doctor Who is. And also, of course, I worked with Fraser as well, and I kind of
of course, I
knew he'd been in Doctor Who, obviously. But I kind of had conversations with him, but I never talked about Doctor Who, because it's just sort of in the days just before the internet. So you kind of knew, directors would come on board who I think, oh God, yes, Michael E. Bryant, he directed Doctor Who. That was great to sort of meet them. And if we went to the pub for drinks, they'd have conversations sometimes. And I remember a conversation Fraser had when he told us that when he worked with Patrick Troughton as Doctor Who, Patrick always wore the same shoes. His own shoes all the time, some brown suede shoes. So that was kind of a real, I love this story.
You should say, what was it like working with that funny little fella?
The different shows, but yes, there was a kind of you have to have a respect for the show you're working on.
So how did the idea for Planet of the Huge come about? Was it, did you pitch a handful of ideas, or did Russell say, here's, a selection, take your pick?
Well, I went along with my notebook, not really sure what they would be requiring from me in terms of ideas. So I had, any writer worth a salt will go into whatever meeting with ideas. Of course they will. So I had several ideas, but actually Russell said, oh, I've created an ice planet for you, because he remembered that conversation we had about the Ice Warriors, and I thought that was really kind of him.
Nice, yeah.
He said, so we've got the Huge, we've got an ice planet, we got a big brain somewhere, we got the humans being nasty, and there you go. Just come up with something, and maybe use some characters. Maybe use some characters from the previous Food story. And that was it. And I had a few weeks to go away, think about it, come up with an idea, a solid idea for the episode.
So did you storyline it first? You kind of did a breakdown, or you just
It was just a kind of 2 or 3 page breakdown. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And did you know at that point that it was going to be Catherine and Donna in it, or
no.
was this when it was the Penny?
That's right. Yeah, it was Penny, and it was very late in the day. I think it was the final draft of my script because we meet in Cardiff Marina and Starbucks. And I was always being told by BBC kind of brand and merchandising and various kind of strange characters who'd leap out of doors and corridors. Don't talk to the press.
Lurking in the
shadows.
Don't
talk to anyone,
coming out with a contract and an NDA.
These red dots appearing on you.
It was very like that. But when I have our script meeting sitting outside Starbucks and the marina with Russell, and Russell's got quite a loud voice, so he'd be sort of emoting.
and
you
quite
can see
presence
people
as well,
nearby kind of leaning in to try and listen to the conversation.
That's what it is. Oh, the Ood are coming back, are they?
Yeah.
Straight on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. So that happened. And then I think I did about maybe two different or maybe three versions of the storyline before they said, okay, right, just go ahead and write it now. But we kind of very much quickly dispensed with the idea that let's have some characters from the previous story.
Yeah, I can't see quite how that would have.
Yeah, I think
it would have worked.
Whatever her name was originally going to be in it, or something was there. I think I heard rumours or.
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but yes, the character. I can't remember the actress's name either, but yes, she was going to be quite
down the pit.
She was at Bottomot Pit. Yeah.
That's the one. I can't remember it now. I've got fandom up there somewhere, but it's such a long entry. I can't scroll through it all. it's crazy, but I mean, it's so. What's the slavery element, which is key to the whole thing? Is everything kind of hangs on that? Was that there from the outset? Was it discussed between you? Was it how was that arrived at?
Yeah, because I wanted to explain why the Ood were the way they were. Because I remember when I watched those first 2 episodes with them in, this is bizarre. A race of people who kind of revel in being slaves. I can't believe. I mean, surely it's in every creature's DNA to be free. To try and be free, to aim for that. So I wanted the slavery element to be an important feature of the story.
It's such a great episode because it starts out kind of a bit fun. It's a bit actiony, and stuff gets blown up and things. But then it becomes really quite.
It's very grim.
It is, and it
Which
becomes.
I mean in a good way. Don't get me wrong.
and it's it's quite moving. In many ways. But the bit where Catherine Tate, is in tears, and it really hits Donna hard, and also. You got the giant brain in it, which on paper sounds absolutely bonkers, but in the concept of in the context of it all,
works
it does, and then but also you've got kind of horrific bits like when I can't remember the character's name off the top of my head, but he starts to transform
Alpin.
and all the the mince comes out of his mouth, And he pulls off his
peels his head back.
Skin,
that was quite. I think I watched that with that jaw dropping at that because it was very, very explicit at that point.
Yeah, it was. You're right. It's gross, and in a good way. And it reminds me a bit of. Do you remember in The Empty Child when Richard Wilson turns and the gas mask comes out, and that's quite sort of infamous, but I'd say the Ood transformation bit is even more.
I think it is because it's practical effects, isn't it? Mostly, when the skin and the spaghetti coming out, which I think makes it more immediate, more physical.
And then it's sort of so compounded by the spitting out of the brain.
Yeah. It comes. Yeah, but it's a wonderful transformation. Actually, just on that for a second, because another one of the reasons and I'm not kidding, when I say it's one of the best, for me personally, I really, really enjoy it. There is so much packed in to that 45-ish minutes. It's just unreal. And it reminds me a lot of the kind of science fiction that Ian Banks wrote, where it's very... a lot of it is about Halpin in a way. Obviously, we've got the Doctor and Donna, but there's a lot of story that we don't see, but which is implied through Halpin there being the son of the corporate founder. Obviously he's got some history with the Ood. He's been brought up with them in his company's relationship and the slavery relationship, and he's somehow affected by them. And now he's sort of horrified by them. He hates them, but he's kind of attracted to them. There's that real conflict that comes through the episode, and then it makes. And I love the irony, the end of it, that he is turned into an Ood and becomes. Is looked after by them. It's almost like a tragic line through somebody's life. Yeah. I love that. When I see that sort of thing in sci-fi, that gets me personally much more involved than just the horrific stuff.
Yeah, and it shows that, within sci-fi, you can create these really interesting characters that you can relate to and you'll move by, and it's not just aliens and big brains and and stuff blowing up. There's so much more to it, and for me, when Catherine Tate was announced that she was coming back, she'd been great in The Runaway Bride, but I was thinking, I'm not sure about this, as a full thing. And from Partners in Crime to Fires of Pompeii,
she's great,
to Planet Dune and onwards, just every episode just enriched the character and her performance, and you can see why she's so beloved, and your work here on Planet Dune is absolutely
gives her a lot to work with.
Yeah, a contributor to that.
I was at first when she was cast in The Runaway Bride, I was thinking, oh god, Catherine Tate, but she's a comedy actress, and yes, she is. But she's also a serious actress, because she was a serious actress before she was a comedy actress. Or comedian. And so, she was fantastic. And I think the part of the success of that, well, not just that story, my story, but the entire series is her journey and what Catherine actually brought to the role of Donna. And her mother. And Bernard Cribbins as a grandfather, but we're a great family unit. And what you say about sci-fi being working really well when you can have characters that you can identify with is absolutely right. But it's the same with everything, drama, no matter what it is. If it's costume drama, period, or whatever, or science fiction. If you don't have characters that you kind of don't really care about or believe in, then you kind of lose your audience. And I think that's what Russell excelled at during his tenure, is that even the most minor character, if they had just a couple of lines, you kind of cared about. You can, and that's because I've been teaching as well, teaching screenwriting and dramatic writing, and I always tell the students that don't just introduce a character for the sake of advancing the plot with the major characters. They have to have they have a life. They have before even though they're your invention from your mind and they're only in a scene or two. Think of the people that you meet in your life. For 5 minutes, they've had a history and they will have a future. That's what you have to think about when you're creating characters. That they live and breathe and if they're going to have depth for the audience, then you have to give them something. I mean, that thing about Halpern, I didn't want him to be a kind of mustache twirling baddie, and so when he comes in with the gun at the end, and he actually says, "I've never really used a gun." Because it really used to bug me when you watch shows where people who've never picked up a gun before start talking like they're at the OK Corral. And have you seen a weapon? Have you held a weapon? They're horrible things. So I wanted that element of reality to be in it, even if it was science fiction. It has to have a truth.
I've said this before on the podcast. Like I said there, when Catherine was announced to come back, I was a bit unsure, and then Matt Lucas, I was a bit unsure, and then Bradley Walsh, I was a bit unsure, and then John Bishop, I was a bit unsure, and every time been proved wrong, and because like you say, there's often quite a strong dramatic acting element for comedians, and like you look at someone like Jim Carrey and how he's done his madcap stuff, but actually his dramatic work was brilliant as well. They are always more than just the jokes, these guys, I think.
Well, look at Victoria Wood as well, who you were saying, Keith, you handed a bunch of work to. So it's. Yeah, I honestly think I think comedians are among the best actors we've got. I think because there is, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody else, but I think there's something about a comedian's take on the world that they like you were saying, Keith. There's a truth to character, and I think they see that. It's that's. That a lot of that stuff informs their comedy. The best comics understand what makes us human, and enables us to sort of turn it around and laugh at ourselves. But if there's an ability to turn it around and play it through with that truth intact, then there's a lot of strength and credibility to the work, I think.
And also, they're great manipulators, comedians, because they know how to make you laugh. So if they know how to make you laugh, they know how to make you cry.
That's also true.
So there is a skill in what they do.
Yeah, but there's again, just going back to the Catherine Tate and Donna in here. So as we were saying, there's a lot of stuff that you give her to do because she's the moral compass throughout most of this. I think and we see that journey, she kind of understands that the Ood aren't just servants; they're slaves, and then her reactions, how that kind of plays through. So was that? So originally when you wrote the script, it was for Penny, but was that morality still intact, or did it change once Donna's character became more clear? How was it?
Yeah,
I think the morality tale of it was always there. I struggled with the character of Penny because Russell kept saying, well, she's this and she's that, and and the relationship is sort of between her and the Doctor is Spencer Tracy and Catherine Hepburn. It's that kind of matiness and cleverness.
Yeah.
And so he'd say, "Oh, you're nearly there with her," and you're nearly there. And in the end of that, that Starbucks and the marina, just it's Catherine Tate, and you think, okay,
it's Catherine Tate. Yeah. Go watch The Runaway Bride again.
yeah.
So, whose idea was the pop art Ood?
Oh,
image?
I love that.
That was down to the designer, because that was a real surprise for me. I mean, I wanted it. I think I wrote in the stage direction that it was sort of like the 60s version of the future from 2001: A Space Odyssey. I wanted that kind of white plastic element, and for some reason lapis lazuli. I kind of was into that kind of multifaceted coloured stone, and they did incorporate a bit of that. But that whole thing of the pop art, the Andy Warhol Ood was fantastic. That was clever.
It's great. Yeah, I love
must be quite interesting when. So it must be quite interesting when you see designers sort of taking your work and getting their own kind of ideas and their own little spin on it and coming out with things that is quite surprising and like
it is. I think that's one of the wonders about Doctor Who is that everybody working on it is sort of at the peak of their game, and it's one. I think it's one of those shows where, I mean, what I was really struck by was how everybody had ideas and that people were all right to talk about those ideas. I've worked on a lot of shows where the producer's in charge and you that's not your role, and I think that was sort of a bit different for Doctor Who. I think people had ideas and good ideas.
It's much more collaborative. I think the stories we're getting out, more of a family kind of.
Yes, absolutely.
So how was it, Keith, when you got the call to say, would you like to make write a Target novel?
Well, some of that came because I'd seen that Target books were kind of coming back, and modern versions of the new era. And I thought, God, I'd really love to write a Target book. I mean, I've had so many kind of things on not really a bucket list. So it was things I wanted to do. And I'd written for Doctor Who, tick. Made a film, tick. All the things I wanted to do, and then write a Target book. Oh, that might be a possibility. So I got my agent to contact Penguin. And it was one of those things where they were just at that time looking for the next batch of Target books. Which ones would they like to think about? And they said, "Oh, that would be if you would like to do that, that'd be brilliant." So I had a meeting with them, and they said, "Yep, do it, write it."
Fantastic.
And again, it was one of those things that they're sitting down to write the first page. You think, "Oh God, why did I get myself into this?"
With another blank screen, I've got to start writing it. Well, so, at least we had something to kind of base it on. There was a body of work there already, isn't it? So did you kind of think about, okay, so how do we flesh this out now? What do we change? How do you go about that?
Well, one of the things that I couldn't do in the TV show was have the insight of the Ood. Because obviously they were animatronic heads. There's only so much you can do with them, and actually there's a lot that they can't conveyed through links and physical movement. Paul Casey was brilliant at that. But I wanted to get more of what the Ood were actually going through and what they were thinking. So that was one of the kind of things I was really looking forward to in the novelisation, being able to do that.
So did you add anything else to it? Was there things that you had to cut from the TV script, or things you wanted to add, and anything you can kind of tell us and our listeners without kind of giving away spoilers? Because we'll admit we haven't got through your book yet. We've had all of them, haven't we, Paul?
Yeah, I can only read so much.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we only got them at the end of last week.
I know, we're crap. What did I say?
No, it's fine. There were things. Well, in an early storyline of the episode. And I mean, it's interesting that you say it was quite a dark episode. Yes, it was, but it was a lot darker in the beginning.
Really?
Yeah, there were scenes in Ood conversion that you see where they're on conveyor belts, the Oods, and they're having their brains sort of cut off, and the translator device is kind of inserted into them, and that was deemed too horrific. So I've sort of got that back into it. And also the Doctor and Donna do more to make sure that's ended. I won't go into any more detail other than that. So they have more in a kind of, they're more involved in the story than perhaps they were in the TV episode. Yeah,
it's nice when these expansions and add-ons happen in the books, and like Waters of Mars is quite a bit darker than the show was.
So you've read that one?
Added, I've got through that one. Yeah, sorry, I literally only got everything on.
We did get them quite late, didn't we?
Yeah, it was Friday, and I got kids, and so my weekend was kind of taken up with that. But it's next, and they add things and expand upon stuff, and it's great. And like you said, you've got the Ood's thoughts in there as well. That's quite exciting because, like you say, in the show they do emote a lot, but they don't. You don't get everything, so I think that sounds like a nice addition to it.
What were you saying before as well about minor characters? You have to sort of invest in them and give them some kind of life, and give them an inner life for the actors to kind of work with.
Yeah, because they want more than just to say a line. So they need to sort of understand.
With that in mind, I kind of have fleshed out a few more of the sales reps as well. So their story is a bit more kind of in depth than it was, because it's only 45 minutes on TV. You can only do so much, and something's got to give somewhere. And I think probably looking back, maybe the sales reps could have done with a bit more fleshing out. But there you go.
But that's like you say, there is only so much, and you have to prioritise the most important parts of it. And those kind of secondary characters. They're not as important as the main action sometimes, and so you have to strip them back down a little bit.
I think it comes across quite nicely, actually. I mean, again, just watching the TV show, it's like you get a feel for that corporate environment. There's a lot of very easy sort of visual indicators that we know exactly what's going on there. The sales figures reports and engineering reports, manufacturing, and all that kind of stuff. We get that, and then we get the kind of the sort of backstabbing, some competitive, the worst side of that kind of corporate culture. It's maybe it's a little bit sketchy still, but as a viewer, then you know where you are, you know what you're dealing with, and there's nothing I need to say about this story actually. Is that because when you're talking about characters that we care about and that are our way into the show and that we can empathise with, which I think is there for the Doctor and Donna, but it's almost like, and then of course we sort of care for the Ood. Well, we do care for the Ood as well. We
exactly,
feel their pain and their story, but all the human characters are actually really nasty. There are very few those characters that we have any empathy with, and I think the only one that we kind of do, at least from me anyway, is actually Halpin, and of course he's not a nice person at all, really. There may be a sort of tragedy that we can empathise with, but actually what he does is really nasty. The choices he makes. And we've got the rep character. What's her name? I can't remember her character's name now. Solana, that's it. Yeah, again, she's given a choice, isn't she? When the Doctor say, come with us, help us stop this, and then she reports him to the guards, and of course, she has to go through the consequences of that decision, as dramatic laws entail. She's gunned down mercilessly by the brutal guards.
Serves her right.
Serves her right. Yeah, nasty person. But I love that storytelling. And again, it's like the story comes through partly the situation, but It's through the characters in that situation, in that moment, how they interact with each other, the choices they make. It's solid from start to finish.
I think that's one of the truisms of life, is that not all bad people not all people who seem bad are bad. They just make bad decisions. And we all make bad decisions in our lives, and that doesn't make us bad or evil. And
bad people.
That whole business with Solana, that moment where the doctor says, "Come with us." You know what's going on. You can't agree with it. And there is a moment where she contemplates, "Oh, should I, or should I not?" And then she makes the wrong decision. And so it's kind of I was very moralistic in those days, but I think it's interesting dramatically to do that.
What was it like for you to go back and watch the episode again and dig out the old scripts ready for writing the book? Had you seen it since broadcast? Or?
I'd seen it, but it was a while ago. And also, I wanted to start writing before I sat down to watch it again, because I wanted to write. Writing for television is one thing. Writing a novel is something else. And I wanted it to be more personal, the novel.
Yeah.
And so what I went on were, I started off basing it on memories of the show.
Yeah.
Memories of the show as it was, and memories of the show, the things that I wanted in it that either got cut or they didn't want. So it was a balance of those two in the beginning. And it was only kind of when I was midway through probably that I stopped and I watched it. And I was really delighted with it. It still, I think, stood the test of time. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I was completely taken by the story. I watched it as a fan, and really enjoyed it. But I didn't want the novel just to be a straightforward kind of interpretation of TV.
Yeah, well, that's one of the beauties of the Target
nice.
stuff,
You've got
isn't
alternatives, isn't it? You know, you've got a TV show, which is its thing, and then you've got the novelisation, which is a slightly different thing. I think that's one of the beauties of the Target novels. You know, they've very rarely just been a straight copy, straight port from one to the other.
They're always more, which is great. So, has Russell read the novel yet? Did you talk to him about it?
No. I kind of lost contact with Russell. I kind of changed my email address over the years, so I kind of lost contact. And I emailed him recently, and I pinged back. I didn't have the right address, so suddenly I thought, I remembered his email address. Oh, great. Oh, no, I am. So I don't know.
You could get your agent on it saying, find me Russell's email address. I've got another script idea. I'll tell you what, just before I forget, actually, because I meant to mention this earlier, it's another thing I love about this story, and again, it may be a design cue, but the rocket ship that comes through, I know it's quite similar to the one in the Impossible Planet as well, because it's obviously part of that same kind of world, if you like, but it reminded me very much of the Masters rocket ship in the Pertwee story. Colony in Space. Yeah. So it almost feels like, and again, that's a very sort of corporate-driven story. You know, the evil corporation versus the people, the farmers and stuff. Yeah. And I kind of, so in my head now, I've got Colony in Space happening at the same sort of time as the Impossible Planet, Planet of the Ood, and all that future Earth Empire thing. I love it. I don't get out much, to be honest, kids. So that kind of thing is food for a fan, if you like.
So, have you kept up with the show since your work on it?
Well, do you know, whenever I've worked on a show and I've finished working on it, I kind of get tired of it, and I just want to do other things. Certainly, I've never been back and looked at EastEnders, watched it, or any show, or Doc Martin. I just or Casualty. I've not watched them. Whereas Doctor Who, because I'm a fan, I do dip in and out there. So I've watched it on and off, and I thought Matt Smith was great, and I really liked Peter Capaldi. I dip in and I dip out, and it's always nice to keep in touch.
Is it kind of like if you work at McDonald's, you never want to see, you couldn't face McDonald's ever again with these things?
Well, actually, it is a bit like that. I used to work at Greggs years ago, and I worked in a confectionery factory, and I made donuts. And for about 3 years after finishing working at Greggs, because you weren't allowed to eat the foods, but I was always shoveling something at them.
This is why if I had a career at Greggs, it would never last long. It would last a day before they find me quaffing a sausage roll out the back.
Oh my God, I was always caught eating something.
One for them, two for me.
It's exactly where it was. I didn't eat donuts for about 2 or 3 years after that. But there is an element of that. But no, I loved Series 4. I thought all the stories were great. I think that was not just because I worked on it. I loved that series. It was really kind of, for me, it felt like well, it was just exciting to have Doctor Who back anyway.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah,
there's a bit of foreshadowing in there, isn't there, towards the 10th Doctor's regeneration? To at the end of the specials at the end of that series. Were you in on those? Were you kind of clued in? Or
No,
was
not
that
at all.
After?
It was only I got the script, the final script, and I read the kind of final page. I thought, my goodness me, what is going on here? No, I didn't. And I went to the launch of the first 2 episodes of Series 4 before it was on TV. And they'd cut it so that you didn't see Rose at the end of the first episode until it was on TV. So when it was on TV, you think, what the hell? This is fantastic.
That was a great
That
moment.
wasn't discussed at the Tone meeting.
No, not at all. So I mean, Russell's great in that sense of giving surprises. And,
I think it was also the first time we'd seen like an alien planet environment as well, isn't it? We'd been to alien planets, but only seen the insides of various things. But now we had an alien vista. We had that snowy landscape with the mountains and the sculpture and a planet in the background and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it looked great.
It's gorgeous.
So, did you have or do you have other ideas for Doctor Who stories that you would like to bring to screen or page or audio?
Ooh. I did have a couple of ideas for audio a few years ago, but I didn't pursue them. No, I watch Doctor Who as a fan these days, and I'm just delighted to see where it goes with other writers. It's kind of I am a big fan, and it's quite nice to just live like that.
We've been busy doing other stuff as well, haven't you? Wyvern Hill, you've got the screenwriters thing you were telling us about earlier. Tell us more about that.
About the
about the classes that you're doing in drama and screenwriting.
It was one of those things. When I was living in London, my agent said, the Central St Martins are after a tutor on screenwriting for the MA directing course, and would you'd be all right with that? You wouldn't mind that, would you? I thought, well, I suppose I could. And I went along and I met the course leader, and I thought, I'd really like to do this, and I absolutely loved it. Having no conception of being a teaching or anything like that, and suddenly I ended up doing something that I loved, and ended up being a course leader on a screenwriting course, a film writing course in Hereford, here in Hereford. Really loved it, but it also made me look at my own kind of philosophy in writing, and I kind of that's changed as well because of keep working with young people just keeps you young and keeps your ideas fresh. I sound like Dracula. Young people.
So who are the sort of people taking the course then? Like you said, I mean, are they young people who want to get involved in writing for TV and what have you?
I mean, the film you mentioned, Wyvern Hill, the director of that, Jonathan, had been a pupil of mine. I say a pupil of mine. I couldn't teach him anything. That guy just knew so much about film, and we mature students and lived a life. And he'd said to me, do you fancy writing a horror film? And I said, I don't know, I'm not really into horror films. But if I do, it'll have to be something a bit more than a horror film. And so that's how that came about, and got the money together and made it. But I can always kind of, you can spot students who will make it, are dynamic and have something, and he certainly does, and he did.
It's a good film. It's kind of reality bending, sort of weird, kind of. Like you said, it's not just horror. There's a definite. I mean, I love stories where they, as a viewer, you have to question. You're pulled into questioning what you're seeing and believing. It's like the unreliable narrator. When you're seeing something through somebody else's point of view, and you kind of go with them, and then there's a point where you sort of have to pull back and say, "Well, it's just true."
I love that sort of thing. I mean, it was a bit of a learning curve for us because we were kind of we ended up being the distributors decided to change the name of the film, and the movie posters they designed, we had nothing to do with that. Just as far as I was concerned, didn't reflect what was in the film. So people who bought it in America thought they're getting
when did they ever in a way,
drag me to hell kind of thing, and it's not like that at all. So I can understand why, on IMDb that they did not like it.
Didn't they?
Well, I think it's got a rating of about 2.7. I mean, if you look at reviews, they're brilliant. I've got loads of really good reviews, but a lot of sort of people who bought it say, this is not the film I
wanted,
I was expecting. So I kind of understand that. But no, I was really pleased with it. personally, very happy with it.
Yeah, I think it's a cracker. It's like you were saying, Jeff, wasn't it? You know, when I watched, have you seen it? Who's the guy who directs? I can't remember now. But that film Nope with the UFO flying saucer. That's kind of a predator. And I was texting Jeff as I was watching it, and Jeff goes, "Well, I don't like that. It's not even horrific." I'm like, well, when was it a horror film? And you said it was trailed as a horror film, which I'd never.
Right. Yeah.
I'd
like to add
here
as well.
It's one of those films where I thought I saw like the first couple of seconds. I thought, no, don't tell me anymore. I want to see it, you know.
Yeah.
And I was at the cinema, closed my eyes and shut myself off because I thought I just want to watch it, and I'm glad I did. You know.
Yeah.
I'd like to add that it's quite rare that I don't like things.
This is true.
You know, I always find something to enjoy, and the trailer for Nope. I'd watched. One of Jordan Peele's other films, the one where there's like an underground network across America, and there's like clones of people and stuff. I think it's Get Out.
Don't know which that.
And I thought, this should be good, you know. And then I watched it, and I said to Paul, maybe I'm just too stupid, I didn't get it. But when the end reveal happens, I was like, is that it? That was a bit,
it's the journey sometimes, Jeff. You know what I mean?
But I was expecting something different, and I think if I'd gone in more aware of what it actually was, I think I probably would have enjoyed it more. So I'd gone in expecting, aliens and gore and blah blah blah, and didn't get that. So it was a bit.
That's a shame, because what I've found fascinating, and certainly during the last few years, when I've been to the cinema and haven't enjoyed a film, when I've watched it later on DVD at home, I thought, oh my God, I've completely revised my opinion of it. The latest remake of Halloween, saw that at the cinema. And, well, actually, was also very drunk and fell asleep with most of it, like everyone else who I went with. And at one point I wake up and everyone else was asleep. And then I'd fall asleep again. But when I'd seen it, I thought, oh no, that was just not good. I really did not enjoy that film. Then I saw it on DVD and hadn't remembered half of it anyway. I thought, oh, this is really I'm enjoying this film.
It was like a whole new film.
It was.
I mean, you're right, that does happen. I've had that with things where, I've seen it in the cinema or, rented it or whatever. And think,
it's like the first time, isn't it? Where it's like a barrage sometimes of stuff that you have to need time to process, which I think probably happens the older you get as well, to be honest. Happens more often now than it ever used to. And then the second time, it's like, because you got an idea of what's going to happen, you can sort of take your time with it a little bit more and maybe enjoy it and stuff like that. But then there is that thing about, the studios and the distributors kind of categorizing films into a certain thing and marketing them using tropes that have very little to do with the film, but which tell people instantly, what category it's in, but then in some ways mislead you.
Which I think is unforgivable. I mean, the other thing I found offensive with changing Wivenhill to Hollow is that I felt, because the subject matter was about a woman with dementia who was kind of increasingly getting lost in her dementia and not really sure what was real and what was she imagining it, was she not, was it happening, and had it happened now or some other time, and to call it Hollow seemed insulting to people with dementia to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's because again, it's like the truth of the subject matter, isn't it? And again, when you think of when you think of Planet of the Ood, actually, that the way you treat the slavery aspects and morality of that, there's a seriousness to it. There's an unbending line which is absolutely credible and true. Yeah. And despite all the sci-fi and all the horror and everything else, you don't break that line; it remains intact, beginning to end.
I think just going on from that. Thinking about it, if I'd said that I'd watched Planet of the Ood and felt it stood the test of time. I think with subject matter that's still kind of relevant today, then of course that will stand the test of time. Yeah. So the stronger the story, the more it has a relevance in society, then the more successful those stories are.
And it's human nature, a lot of it as well. Like we're talking about nasty people, the ancillary characters are quite nasty, but they're true to who they are, And again, I think that helps it stand the test of time. Plus, also, it's a great script from the out, and you've also got. Was it Graham Harper who directed it?
Oh, great!
He's got a great eye for that kind of thing, and he seems to be a person who loves the reality of fantasy almost. Yes. Making it real, making it look grounded.
Yeah, no, he's very good at that. I was very lucky to have him. Great guy.
Yeah, he did a great job.
We were pleased he'd come back. So what's next on the horizon for you then, Keith? What's lined up? Obviously more with these screenwriting classes and
no, I finished that.
Is it finished?
Yeah,
sorry.
When lockdown happened, the sort of course came to an end, and I wanted to do something. Well, I wanted to work actually. And I ended up working for 15 months in the funeral industry during lockdown, which was
in the what industry? Sorry,
the funeral industry.
Oh, the funeral industry. Oh,
yeah.
Crikey!
And so I have a wealth of material which I'm exploiting now.
Why not?
So I'm working on a pilot for a drama series about that. I'm doing a bit of Doctors for the BBC. That sort of was a surprise. They sort of, I got a call last year to say had I thought about it, would I like to? And I thought about it and said, yes, please. So yeah, I'm planning another novel as well. And
brilliant.
But not science fiction. It's something that's sort of been quite close to my heart for a while. So I want to kind of get that out of my system. So I just got kind of open to new challenges.
Yeah. What's the timeline on the novel, do you reckon, when we likely to see it?
I'm just applying for funding for it. It's set in Mallorca in the 60s, so I'm gonna some of the funding I need to go to Mallorca. Not on holiday, but I need to do some research that I haven't been able to do.
Honest.
So hopefully, if I can do that in the next couple of months and get out there, I could probably get. Maybe I'll be able to finish it by next spring.
Brilliant. Well, let us know when it's out. I'd love to read it. You know, I read a lot of stuff, not just sci-fi. I read literally anything. Give it to me. I'll read it.
Will do.
Yeah. That's. I'm not angling for a free copy, obviously.
You don't get
but
one.
If it happens,
you don't read the ones that are sent to you free anyway.
That's only because Jeff's got it.
Yeah, well, we only got one copy of each one, and we had to share them. So if you'd had it, then you'd have got through it quicker.
I haven't read the paperback. It's been in my hands. I look at it in my hands, but I just haven't had the courage to read it yet. I have read the manuscript several times, believe me.
Right.
But I just haven't been able to sit down and read, because I always kind of think, what happens if I don't like something of it? But no, I'm
a bit late now.
It is a bit late,
well,
exactly.
I will drop you an email when I've read it and let you know what I think.
Yeah, we will. We'll put it out.
So, before we go, Keith, we've got a little game that we play, which is called
We're doing the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the Grand Serpents Asteroid. So if you don't know, the Grand Serpent was a character in the Flux series of Doctor Who, and his punishment for being a horrible evil man was to be stuck on a lone asteroid drifting through space
in the eternity of space.
Oh my God!
Isolation.
So you can only take one thing in the following categories to your asteroid when you are imprisoned.
Yeah, we aren't going to banish you there. Sorry,
for reasons unbeknown, to us. So let's go with one comic or book.
Oh, okay, right. Well, just I've got it with me. I would take.
We got some
for people listening who.
Because it sort of defines my childhood, and I still, open it up, not particularly too regularly, but every once in a while, I'd open it up and I'm completely transported to another time.
So for our audio listeners, that was...
It was the Radio Times Doctor Who 10th Anniversary Special, 1973.
With
30 pence.
John Pertwee in his red outfit.
Off.
It's funny, isn't it, when you have something like that, that it takes you back to childhood. And like with my kids now, we've bought a couple of books that, I haven't seen or thought of in decades. But then we spotted them in the shop. Oh, I read that. There was one that was a pop-up haunted house type thing. Okay. Which was quite well known. It's an old book now, but we bought it, and going back through that, it took me back as well. Yeah, it's quite amazing what gets unlocked in your head of it, with an object,
It is. It's like it's a key to another aspect of your life, isn't it? That
yes, it is. Yeah,
bring it back.
Yeah. It is almost like looking through that door again, isn't it? And it's all still there in place from when you remembered it.
It's lovely, really. Yeah. Okay, one album.
Ooh.
I would say, yes, I know which one it would be. It would be Tumbleweed Connection, Elton John, 1970.
Okay. And why that one in particular?
It's not. It hasn't got any big hits on it. It's not very commercial. It's kind of country in a way, but every song is just brilliant. I think my favourite is track number 5, Where To Now, St. Peter. If you haven't heard it, give it a go.
Yeah, I'll have to dig
it's a beautiful album.
Yeah,
very different from Elton John's later stuff.
Yeah, I'd not heard of it actually.
Because Elton John, you think of the Showman and again the big commercial hits that he's had, and I never even considered. Never even considered that. There's a much less commercial, probably better album. Good stuff. Oh, I'll have to look out for that. Yeah. Well, you're taking it with you to your Grand Serpents Asteroid.
Thank you very much.
I shall have to take another copy.
Okay, one horror movie.
Ooh.
My favourite horror
Now we've got him thinking. For audio listeners, there is steam coming from.
There is a lot of steam coming out because I said before, I'm not really I'm not an expert in horror films, but I know what I like. Well, I'll tell you the one I won't take, and that's the original Frankenstein, the James Whale Frankenstein, because from childhood, I was bought a Boris Karloff Frankenstein robot statue, and when it was opened the box, screamed the place down. I could only have been about 3 or 4, and then tried to watch the film, and still to this day, I'm quite terrified by it. So it won't be Frankenstein, but it may be. There's a French film called Eels, ILS. Them. I don't know if you've come across it, and it's about a couple who buy a house in the countryside and renovate it, and strange things start to happen. And it's nothing supernatural; it's very real, and that's what makes it even more terrifying. So I'd take that with me.
Okay, that sounds good actually.
Yeah.
Okay, one sci-fi movie.
Forbidden Planet.
Oh yes,
good choice.
Yeah, I love that story.
I think even today, the special effects are still brilliant. The sound effects are amazing, and still creepy and futuristic in a way that haven't dated in a way that a lot of other films from that period and even up to the modern period have dated. So yes, I'd take that with me. It's a beautiful. It's like a painting. It's beautiful.
It is. Yeah. I mean,
it's a
sets,
great film.
The paintings that
the
transpose them onto are
fabulous.
fantastic. Yeah, it's groundbreaking and a great story again with the truth going right through it, isn't there? So, good one.
That's brilliant. Okay, one fantasy movie.
Fantasy movie. Whoa, crikey! Oh, The Princess Bride.
Okay, yeah, good.
Jeff likes that
good
one.
choice. Yeah.
As you wish.
And then one full season or one episode of Doctor Who.
Ooh, one story or
one story or one season.
I would take the Talons of Wen Chiang.
Ah, that's a good one.
For me, that sort of embodied how amazing the classic serial was at its best. The script was spot on, the acting was perfect, the sets were incredible, the music matched everything, and it just looked superb. So for that reason, and it was quite scary. And I love what they did with the rat in the new sort of the new Blu-ray.
Made them a little more scabby like, didn't they?
Yes. So yes, I'd take the Talons of Wen Chiang with me.
Brilliant.
And you got that Professor Jago and Lightfoot.
Excellent.
Again, that's what guest characters who come in who are brilliant.
Yes, who live beyond that first appearance.
And now they do in Big Finish, don't they?
Very much.
Certainly do.
Fantastic. That's a good collection of stuff to take with you.
You'd be all right there for a while, I think.
Floating in the depths of space, and obviously you'd be able to write your novel as well and finish it.
You could take your typewriter and a stamp.
We're allowing that.
Floating around in the nothingness. like Boris Johnson's career.
Yes.
I'll just ate my tonsils there. Indeed. On that note, Keith Temple, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
And for our listeners and viewers, when you get your hands on the Target novel of Planet of the Ood, we hope you enjoy it very much. And Keith, are you quite active on social anyway?
Oh no, I'm terrible on social media. I came off it years ago, and I'm so much happier.
Yeah, actually get on with life now.
Well, we'll get people to tweet us and tell us what they thought.
Oh, please do. And, send it on.
We'll let you know.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Pass
we'll
it
do.
on. Fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You.
Have a great day, and good luck with everything, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much.
Bill, thanks.